Mr. President.
Senator from Connecticut.
Thank you, Mr. President. In just a few weeks, Mr. President, our nation will come together to remember September 11. It will be the 20th anniversary of that unspeakable act of horror, an attack on our nation that devastated us, and most particularly the families and loved ones who lost members of their families and friends, the fallen, who will be remembered on that day and honored. And I've been honored to stand with those families over the years, as many of us have, as they remembered their loved ones and continued to face the trauma and immeasurable grief of their loss. And in these years, many of those families have sought justice. They've tried to honor their loved ones with action, to vindicate not only their individual grief and mourning, but also justice for our nation, truth, and truth-telling in the courts of law in this country. They have brought legal action against the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in the face of mounting credible, significant evidence that, in fact, the Saudis aided and abetted that attack on our nation. As a Congress, we have acted to support that effort. And I was proud to help to lead the Justice Against Sponsors of Terrorism Act, known as JASTA, when we passed it overwhelmingly here, and then on a bipartisan basis, we overrode the president's veto. It was President Obama who vetoed it, and many of us, including the presiding officer, voted to override that veto, I believe. We opened the courthouse doors to the 9/11 families in their legal effort to hold Saudi Arabia accountable in the face of that evidence of its potential complicity. And again, I was proud to stand with these families in 2018 when I introduced, with the help of Senators Cornyn, Schumer, Gillibrand, Murphy, and Menendez, a resolution urging that documents related to the September 11th attack be declassified to the greatest extent possible. That resolution passed the United States Senate unanimously because all of us recognize that the survivors and the families of the fallen and the American people deserved answers, the truth about what happened on September 11th. Who was behind it? Who supported it? Who aided and abetted it? And who was complicit in enabling that handful of terrorists to do such devastating attack and unspeakable horror on this nation? And many of us have stood with those families to ensure that the 9/11 families not only get their day in court, but are also able to go to court with all the evidence they need to have a fair chance to prove their case. I've asked questions at oversight hearings, including of Director Wray of the FBI. I've sought commitments from nominees like Attorney General Garland, and I've written letter after letter after letter with Democrats and Republicans alike, calling on the Department of Justice and the FBI to provide information that the 9/11 families have requested. I'm proud to continue to stand with those families as we approach this 20th anniversary date. But I also, in fairness to this administration, want to say the moment of truth-telling now has arrived. And there is a moment of reckoning here. These families, since JASTA, have been engaged in an epic legal struggle against the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for aiding and abetting the terrorists who attacked the United States on September 11th. But now that struggle is also one against their own government, our government, because while Congress did our job in passing JASTA, opening the courthouse doors to give those 9/11 families a chance at justice, the last administration invoked the state secrets privilege without explanation to shield the documents and information the 9/11 families need to make their case. The last administration denied them their fair day in court, and I say with great regret that the current administration seems intent on doing the same. My hope is otherwise. And that's the reason that I have raised this issue publicly and privately, repeatedly, not only in the last years, but in the last weeks. To deny information to the 9/11 families, and equally important, to the American people, is unacceptable, and it is unconscionable. The requests that I and so many of my colleagues have made to the Department of Justice and the FBI to disclose and declassify what can be disclosed and declassified in the national interest, those requests have gone unanswered. And sadly, the executive branch across administrations has repeatedly failed to provide any explanation. Let me repeat, failed to provide any explanation, let alone meaningful justification for why there has been no disclosure. And that denial of explanation or justification is itself also unacceptable and unconscionable. These families will never get their loved ones back, but at the very least, they should get answers. In fact, they deserve answers. They deserve the truth. The American people deserve the truth. Now, what the executive branch has done is to invoke broadly and unspecifically something called the state secrets privilege. The state secrets privilege was and remains intended to prevent court-ordered disclosure of government information when genuine and significant harm to the national defense or foreign relations is at stake, but only to the extent necessary to safeguard those interests. And it's also clear under the Department of Justice rules that it should be invoked only upon sufficient showing that it is necessary, and I'm quoting, to protect information the authorized disclosure of which could reasonably be expected to cause significant harm to national security, and that the invocation be narrowly tailored for that specific purpose. And here's the problem. We don't know if that's what happened in the 9/11 families case or many other cases. We don't know whether decisions to invoke this privilege met this high and exacting standard or were narrowly tailored. And we don't know because in the 9/11 families case, the Department of Justice and the FBI have claimed that even the Trump administration's, quote, justification for secrecy needed to remain secret. And the public discussion of this issue would reveal information that would cause the very harms the assertion of the state secret privilege is intended to prevent. end quote. These blanket assertions and vague justifications undermine both public confidence that our government will only invoke the privilege to protect national security and the pursuit of justice. Now, let's be very clear. There are times when disclosure can imperil methods and secrets and sources in information gathering. There are times when secrecy is important to protect an ongoing investigation. We are talking here about disclosure of information relating to an attack 20 years ago. And there is no indication of any ongoing investigation into the 9/11 attack on our country. There has been no explanation that sources and methods may be imperiled. There has been no justification whatsoever. And similar rationales, blanket assertions of protection, have prevented explanations in other cases as well, and in some instances have led to withholding of documents or information and outright dismissal of cases, depriving victims of an opportunity for justice. In 1948, 3 civilians were killed when a B-29 aircraft testing secret electronic equipment crashed in Waycross, Georgia. Their grieving widows did the only thing they could, bringing a wrongful death action in federal court against the government. But the invocation of the state secrets privilege prevented them from receiving justice and the truth. In 2003, Macedonian officials abducted a German citizen at the request of the CIA. In that instance as well, justice was sought unsuccessfully, and the case was dismissed because the government invoked the state secrets privilege. And in 2006, the FBI allegedly engaged in the targeted religious profiling of Muslims in Southern California. If true, it was and it remains an egregious abuse, one that led these individuals to sue the FBI. But rather than let the case proceed, and rather than let the truth come to light about what the FBI did and why, the government asked the trial court to dismiss the case on the basis of the state secrets privilege. And the trial court agreed. This case, however, is not yet over because the Supreme Court will hear it in the fall after it has wound its way through the lower courts. And as we know, justice is often delayed. In this instance, justice delayed is justice denied, and again, because of the state secrets privilege. Let me close with a bit of history. On September 11, 2019, the then President of the United States, Donald Trump, made a promise. He made a promise to the 9/11 families. He made a promise to them, to their faces. He looked them in the eye, he shook their hands, and he told them that the Department of Justice would disclose documents relevant to their case against the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. The next day, the Attorney General of the United States, William Barr, in a sworn declaration to the Southern District of New York Federal Court, invoked the state secrets privilege to prevent the release of the very information that the President of the United States had promised those families. The same documents, the same evidence that the President of the United States had vowed to disclose. The very next day, the Attorney General of the United States went into the federal district court in New York and said no. The 9/11 families, whom I have come to know and admire, deserves so much better from the last administration. But it is not about one administration or another. It is about the United States providing them with the truth. It is about our government providing the people of the United States with the truth. I will be coming back to the floor in the weeks ahead, and I hope my colleagues will join me in raising this issue, in calling on the Department of Justice and the FBI to review their decisions invoking this privilege, to disclassify and disclose information that they have withheld. They have yet to explain why the national interest is served by this blanket, unjustified, and unexplained invocation of the state secrets privilege. The 9/11 families and the American public deserve that much and more. And this case is about accountability. It is about holding accountable the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. I am not here to argue the case in court. I'm not here to take issue with any legitimate, urgent, narrowly tailored interest that may be served by this privilege, but there is no indication of any such interest. And in fact, neither the FBI nor the Department of Justice should stand in the way of justice for these families in court. They owe the American people an explanation, and they owe the 9/11 families the truth so they can bring it to bear in their quest for justice. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.